Welcome back to another Centennial Tidbit, where today we're talking with individuals and organizations that have an impact or tie to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier during the Centennial. And today we're going to have a very interesting conversation with Jeff Gottesfeld, who is a longtime writer and the current author of a new book called 21-Steps. So welcome, Jeff.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, I know that you didn't serve in the military, because we've obviously talked a little bit before. And that nobody in your family has served in the military. So what motivated you to write a book about the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier?
Right. And not only that, write it for children.
Right. Even harder.
Write it for kids. I can tell you the moment I got the idea for the book. It was Memorial Day of 2016. And I have been in the habit for many years of going to a national cemetery on Memorial Day. Sometimes they're big ones, like out when I lived in Nashville. Sometimes they're very small, like the one at Fort Douglas in Salt Lake City. But this Memorial Day, I was with Beth and her daughter Audrey, and we went to the Los Angeles National Cemetery. And it was busy on Memorial Day. There were a lot of people there. And we were walking through it, and I saw a tombstone that said unknown. And I was not anticipating that, at all. And there was another one that said unknown. And in that instant, I flashed back to when I was maybe, 18, 19 years old, and my first visit to Arlington National Cemetery and visit to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And watching the tomb guards, and I was like, what's behind this? Where did this come from? And who are these tomb guards, and what drives them? And in that instant, I decided to write this book for kids, knowing that this is just vastly different from most books that are being written for children. I didn't serve in the military. I regret it. I think it's a loss in my life. I'm a big proponent of national service now, but I'm extremely patriotic and love this country and like to tell stories for kids that I think will bring them toward important values. And if there is any story to be told to bring kids to important values, and I'm saying kids like second grade and up, second grade to like maybe 92. It's the story of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and the return of the first unknown and what it meant to America and what happened with the tomb between the time that it was built and when it was first guarded, and when the first contingent guarded officially in 1937, and what's happened since. And this is quintessential story about the best of American values. So that was my impetus.
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, you not only did you take on a challenge of trying to educate, like you said, 2 to 92-year-olds about the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, but you're trying to capture it in a very unique way. And as you've mentioned to me before, there's so many books out there that underscore identity. But the theme of this book is entirely a little different, and it's capturing something a little bit bigger. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, it's right there in front of us. I mean, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and the Tomb Guards, it is in a way about it's the temporary obliteration of identity for something longer. We don't know who the unknown is. The unknown could be a Choctaw Nation's farmhand who was blown up by an artillery shell in France. It could be the son of a rabbi from Boston, could be African American, could be Latino American. We have no idea at all. And in that soldier's repose in the tomb, we also have no idea. So the soldier belongs to everybody in that way, and we all can relate to making just the ultimate sacrifice. And then the more I learned about the tomb guards and the values that they embody and their devotion to line 6 and the sort of aspiration toward perfect sameness in the way they conduct themselves, and that they could be Choctaw Nations, they could be Jewish, they could be Latino American, they could be Asian American, they could be Black American, men, women, but in that moment on the mat, only Americans, and there to protect someone who made the ultimate sacrifice, including their name and face. That's an important story.
You know, I have to admit that as I do a lot of education with the society and talking about it, it's you got it. I mean, you captured it right there about what the tomb represents to the nation, and how it transcends race and religion and politics and all the other little things that make us unique as Americans. It really does. So, I mean, you had this fantastic idea. You were targeting a young audience. Tell me how you started researching this. I mean,
the research was interesting and the writing was interesting, because my first couple of attempts at it, I went at it in one way, and then I switched, and I'll talk about that a little bit. So the research here was actually, I'm not going to call it simple, but it was generally straightforward. I mean, my last book, No Steps Behind, is largely set in Japan pre-World War II and then during the occupation. And I don't speak Japanese, so that book was a challenge to research. It took 5 years. This was simpler. You know, there have been magnificent books written about Arlington. The National Geographic one is just stunning. And I enlisted a lot of tomb guards who were so eager to help me and talk with me. I think the first tomb guard I met was Steve Shodine. There was a showing of the film The Unknowns up in Livermore, California, in the Bay Area. So I drove 5 hours from Los Angeles up to go see this movie and met Steve. And I guess that proved my bona fides a little bit there. And Steve was incredibly helpful. Colin Anthony, who's featured in that film, met with my de facto wife and I in San Diego for just 2 of the most stunning hours of my life. Talking to me, Ruth Hanks, now Ruth Robinson, but everybody wanted to help. So that was great. However, my first attempt at writing this, and I had a draft, so I had the idea on Memorial Day 2016. I had a draft probably by the following spring, and it wasn't really that good. I had this notion that I was going to like take a boy or a girl on a trip to the tomb, and they were going to be not disenchanted, disinterested in what they saw. And then they would meet a tomb guard, and the tomb guard would talk to them about it. And you know what? It was okay, but it wasn't good enough. And I put it away. And then my book agent, you know, the book was sort of my breakthrough book in picture books. And my first picture book was a book called The Tree in the Courtyard, about the horse chestnut tree behind the secret annex in Amsterdam when Anne Frank was in hiding. And I told that story from the perspective of the tree. And my book agent said, you know, this draft is okay. It's okay, but not good enough. What would you think about telling the story in a different way from a different perspective? How about from the perspective of the tomb? And I said, no. How about if I do it from the perspective of the first unknown? And that was it. There was the breakthrough. And once I had the point of view, I could tell the story in its first person, which
wow.
Gutsy to
no, and as I'm not creative, as I've told many people, I'm very good at stick figure drawings.
Right.
That's about it. So when you're taking a concept like that and speaking from the tomb, you've captured my attention immediately as a tomb guard. And I'm sure that all the other sentinels that you've mentioned there probably told you the same thing, is that when we're there alone, we bond with the unknown soldier. We talk to the unknown soldiers. We want to know their life, their history. It's one of those natural things. So to hear you create a storybook that comes from their perspective of listening to us at late night hours, listening to the people that come to watch and view and things like that is amazing. I know that you start out your book with the Sentinel's Creed, which is something that obviously every tomb guard takes very seriously, whether they're on the mat today or like myself, retired and moved on to other things. And one of the lines in there, "My standard will remain perfection," is kind of key to a lot of what we do training wise. How did you take that portion of the Sentinel's Creed and put it into the book?
Uh, Super carefully. I mean, first start with this amazing thing that nobody knows who wrote the Sentinel's Creed. It's attributed to, I think, to Simon. Only a first name. We have no idea who wrote it, at all, which is beautiful in its own way. My standard for writing this book was perfection. And Matt Tavares's standard for the art for this book was perfection, which means that we're human beings. We're going to flub things up. It's what we do. But we try to catch as much as we possibly can. I mean, and here's an example. In an earlier draft, I think I made reference to the night of July 2nd, 1937, which was the first night that duty was done at the tomb.
At the 24-hour mark, yeah. That's when
24
hours started.
And I think I referred to it as a half moon night or a quarter moon night. I have to look in the book. Anyway, I screwed up the quarter of the moon. Fixed that. Would it matter that much? No. But line 6, got to be as perfect as possible. Here's another example. There's references in the text to putting flowers on gravestones and petals on tombstones, which is a Jewish ritual observance. In the early art, pebbles were on graves marked with a cross. So we changed that. Would anybody pick that out of a spread with 1,000 headstones? Probably not. Want it to be perfect. Another example of the art, and I give Matt so much credit because he totally bought into this. We had a sentinel being dressed in the quarters, and the buck strap on the uniform, and you'll remember this, I think we talked about it at the time. The buck strap was not exactly right. Who would notice it? Only a sentinel.
Right.
We fixed it. As much as possible. Are there going to be mistakes? Sure, there are going to be mistakes. We're human, but the quest for perfection, it's not designed to get you to perfection. It's designed to get you as close to it,
right,
as you possibly can be. And so that was my thought.
No, and it's interesting that you take something that we hold dear and we're able to appreciate, like you said, the simple poem that was written by somebody dedicated to somebody in 1971, and applied that concepts to your writing and taking it on. And I know that early on, I was lucky enough to see some of the early sketches, drawings by Matt, and I'm not going to lie, I was blown away. I think that he does an amazing job.
It's unbelievable.
How did you connect with Matt?
Oh, it's fantastic because I had never met him and I didn't know him. One of the secrets of children's book publishing is that typically, unless the writer is an author illustrator, and that's sort of its own thing, writers don't pick their illustrators generally. The connection is made by the publishing company, and the publisher Candlewick had worked with Matt previously. and they thought he would be the right artist for this. And of course, I knew who he was, but we had never talked. And they put us together, and I was just thrilled. He was quite interactive. We were quite interactive through this process. I mean, I helped Steve Shodin, helped for Matt to go down to the tomb and visit the quarters. And Matt and I went back and forth a number of times, but that's not always the case. I mean, on the tree in the courtyard, I had no interaction with the illustrator at all, with Peter McCarty during the creation of the book. He killed it. He did great with it. It could not have been better. So the author-illustrator relationship is typically brokered by the publishing company. They tend to know what they're doing.
Well, they did a great job in pairing you up with this, and I can only imagine what, Matt getting this call out of the blue saying, "Hey, we need you to do some illustrations for a children's book about the tomb," and go. But like I said, if everyone hasn't had an opportunity to get one yet, they're going to be amazed by the artwork along with the story, which is you've done a fantastic job. I'm not going to.
Thank you so much.
I may be a little biased, but I don't read children's books a lot. I've got a granddaughter, and when mine comes in the mail, I can't wait to show this to her. So do me a favor.
Yes.
Is there one sentence or maybe a section, paragraph of the book that stands out from all the others that maybe you could read and tell us about why you wrote that?
Yes, I can. And here's what's great. I hate to read my own stuff after it comes out. Just hate it. Whether it's a novel or the children's book, because I want to take a red pen and I want to mark it up and I want to change everything, because it's never good enough. I've read this book aloud now maybe 3 or 4 times over Zoom to school kids through World Read Aloud Day and actually I don't hate it. And so far there's nothing I want to change. That will come. So I can read this with enthusiasm.
Okay.
Let's see. So the unknown has come home. We've told the story of how the unknown came home and was transported to Washington. And this is Matt's art of lying in state at the Capitol. And if you look at it, it is multiracial and multicultural. And behind it is some of the artwork from the Capitol Rotunda. Okay, here we go. In 1921, one unknown returned to stand for all. I was transported by the Navy to Washington and lay in state in the Capitol, where an army of mourners filed past my casket. Many were families whose sons died nameless and faceless. As they knelt, prayed, and anointed my flag with tears, I felt their stories. The stories of a Boston kid who swung for the fences, a Texas boy who broke horses, a Choctaw Nation farmhand, a Nevada miner. In that moment, I became theirs.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite passages. I think I got the writing right, and it's just true. You people come to the tomb, or you come to even walking in a national cemetery. I'm looking. There are 80,000 people buried in Los Angeles National Cemetery. I look around, it's like, oh my gosh, each and every one of these men and wives and husbands, as well, made a gigantic sacrifice, for this country. And some of them made the ultimate sacrifice, and they belong to me. And actually, you take it a step further, I belong to them. I owe for that.
Well, that's the one thing that I enjoyed about being assigned to the tomb was the fact that we got to roam Arlington National Cemetery pretty much at will. And when you go there, you can see the development of our nation in the people that are buried there, whether they are slaves to presidents, those that helped shape our nation, whether it was in good times or bad times, or for the right or the wrong reason. All of that is there, and it's very interesting to read about history, but it's a different thing when you're standing next to those same people, and like you said, being able to say thank you for what you've done. You've got a very ambitious book that targets a great generation, 2 to 92. I like that. But as someone takes the book home, what is the goal for the reader? What do you want them to take the time to learn when they read the book? What's the takeaway here?
It's a great question. I think that when you have a book in your hands, it's a different experience emotionally and intellectually from simply hearing something or thinking about it. And I would like, in the 5 to 10 minutes that they're going to spend with it, and then as they go back to it again and again, that they will focus on the values that these soldiers and sentinels brought to their lives and bring to their work every day. And these are crucial values that I don't think get talked about enough these days. And I have tremendous respect for the kids today. They are way kinder and way more compassionate than I will ever be in my life. They are raised beautifully, emotionally that way. But I would like, as people read 21 Steps, to realize that values like reverence, loyalty, respect, gratitude, appreciation, rigor, discipline, focus, sacrifice. These are also really important values in people's lives and maybe even in their own. I'd like them to get something that Colin Anthony said to me when we were talking, and boy, I was looking for 10,000 ways to work it into the book, and I just couldn't do it. But it didn't make what he said any less important. He said, and I'm going to paraphrase here. He was like, Jeff, people say to me sometimes, like, isn't this just all too much? Isn't the shoes and the uniform and the rehemming and the wetting the gloves and the angle of the hat brim and the spacing of them, isn't it like too much? And he said, and I have to remember, like, I spent 2 years on the mat. I give 2 years. The unknown gave everything. And if people can remember that going forward in their lives, I think that each of us will be better individuals, and more importantly, will be a better and more united States.
Well said, Jeff. Absolutely. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your vision and able to capture such a very delicate yet deep thought and feeling about what the tomb actually represents to so many families across this nation. And I appreciate you for doing the work. How does the public find out more about what you've done and what you got coming up?
Oh my gosh, that's kind of you to ask. Well, there's my website, which is Jeff Gottesfeld Writer. You can certainly Google the book 21 Steps, Guarding the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and 21 is written out there. Official publication will be at the beginning of March on this. It's already getting some buzz. I'm happy to say the reviews have been beautiful for it. And I think the book is going to break through because it's really different. And it's really important. And, we are coming up on the 100th anniversary of the tomb in November. And when I've read this book to kids, it's been stunning because I can see their faces on my screen. They're rapt. They know in their hearts that this matters. And they know that Tomb Guard and Sentinel values and ideals matter. And they connect. And they write to me afterwards. And it's just an honor to be able to put this story and the story of the Sentinels forward for the country and the world.
Well, I can't wait to see what the public says when they get their hands on the book. I know that you and I will be talking in November. You're going to come to our reunion and Centennial Week and sit down, and hopefully we'll have a nice little audience there where you can talk about, again, the book in some detail, and maybe share some of those letters from the kids. Would be very moving as well. I'd like to hear what they have to say, but you know, from the get-go, when you contacted us and said, this is what I'm doing and this is who I'm working with, I got to tell you, Jeff, again, you have knocked it out of the park.
Thank you so much.
Well done.
Thank you so much. Well, you know, you guys do it all. I mean, it's so funny, through COVID, I've been thinking, okay, so Arlington is closed, right? I mean, to the public. So for a year, Sentinels have been on the mat. No one there to watch them. And I will guarantee that there is as much rigor and line 6 with no one there as when there's thousands of people there. And, you know, when people get to where they can strive for their best, even when no one is looking, again, we will be better people and we will be a more United States.
Definitely good values to have and strive for. Well, again, thank you for taking the time today, Jeff. I appreciate it. And we look forward to the reviews and the public's response to 21 Steps.
Beautiful. Thank you, Gavin. I really appreciate your help and bringing me into this.
Oh, thank you. All right.